It is easy to lose yourself to fear and hate, and therefore destroy that which you fear or loathe. But striking out at darkness does not eliminate it. Destruction out of anger without reason or purpose is simply destruction. You must learn to control fear and anger and love, for they can blind you to the truth. Let's take a trip into the soul of the Cyber Knight in Rift's role-playing game. Hey everybody, Questwise here, and we are back again with some awesome Rifts action. Last week I did a video on the Mind Melter OCC occupational character class, and I got a lot of very positive responses and a lot of requests on doing that same type of thing again. So this time, as per the intro, we'll be diving into checking out the Cyber Knight. The Cyber Knight is a very, very awesome OCC with lots of role-playing potential. Inside the book, the Rift's Ultimate Edition core rulebook, on page 61, you'll get the entry into the Cyber Knight OCC, or occupational character class, with a nice sort of background into and description into what a Cyber Knight is. There's a lot of speculation and a lot of openness to this sort of background on the Cyber Knight, which is nice because that gives you a lot of role-playing possibilities. No one is really 100% sure where the Cyber Knights came from. There's a lot of legends and a lot of myths behind the sort of origins of the Cyber Knights and or their secret base or their secret monastery where they're trained. But again, no one except for the Cyber Knights themselves really know for certain what the origin of their order is. Why is that awesome? That's very awesome in a role-playing sense, because anybody who wants to play a Cyber Knight as a character class or an OCC gets to sort of modify that themselves. They can either use what's listed here as a background for their character, or they can just sort of create their own sort of myth and legend, or in character, in play, can actually feed those myths and legends as well too, and tell people their own sort of twists on the myth of their creation and stuff as well too. Generally, where Cyber Knights come from, the general sort of background is that there were a group of adventurers called the Defilers. And if you've been with Palladium books for any period of time, you know that the Defilers were a group of characters that were played by Kevin, the creator of the company, and his gaming group way back in the day, and using the rules that are set out that became originally Palladium Fantasy and or Rifts. And that one of the characters, according to the background fluff here in the book, named Lord Coke, had created an order of the Knights and basically created what is now the Cyber Knight class in Rift's Earth. The great thing about the Cyber Knights is sort of an outlook on what they are. Think of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Think of the Jedi Order from Star Wars, and blend those two together and you get what a Cyber Knight is. The great thing about the Cyber Knights, though, is that they're all very unique and individual. And as you can see by the artwork here on page 62, there's a great variety of how a Cyber Knight can be portrayed. They're not simply all the same. The one thing that does unite them all, though, is that they have the ability to use psychic powers to their advantage, as well as cybernetic armor that's grafted directly to their bodies themselves. Thus, it does not make them Borgs, because they are they still are more human than machine, but they do exhibit some of those abilities and stuff as well too. So let's take a look at this. The intro actually used a portion of this text underneath the Cyber Knight training as a sort of description of what the code of the Cyber Knight is, and that they are in existence because the characters themselves, the characters in the game, believe that all life is equally important and that it all must be protected, whether that be a DB or dimensional being, any humans, or any other type of creature that are out there that are good. I mean, the Cyber Knights do stand against the demons that pour through from the rifts and any other sort of evil creatures that come therewith, and as well as the Coalition, standing against the Coalition as well too, and their sort of nefarious ideals. Listed on page 63 is the Code of Chivalry. You'll see here there are 7 tenets to that code, and each Cyber Knight sort of interprets them in his own way. Down here you get the beginning of the creation of the character class itself, including some of the bonuses that you get in addition to ability bonuses as well, attribute bonuses as well as combat bonuses too. Below that, we get psychic powers, inner strength points, and spirit. Again, you're using very psychic type powers in order to become a Cyber Knight and use those to protect others in the world. What's really interesting is that you get you can roll or you can choose. I like to roll in my games. I like things to be a little random, and also gives me a little bit more of a challenge into role playing as well too. So if I roll some random things, now, a lot of the options I choose for myself, but whenever there's a chance to do something randomly, I like to do those because it really pushes me further as a role player and allows me to role play a scenario, or it allows me to role play some characteristics that I might not have chosen for myself, and makes the character much more dynamic in that respect. So over here you have a chance to be a minor psychic, a major psychic, a master psychic, or a non-psychic Cyber Knight, which is kind of interesting thought to kind of playing that one of those characters as well too. Minor psychic has a choice of some of these abilities here, and then of course major and master you get a lot more ISP or inner strength points as your base, as well as a much larger group of psychic powers to pull from. The sort of signature to the Cyber Knight, though, when you see one on the battlefield or in the wild, their sort of signature power is the ability to summon a psy-sword, which is a sword made completely of psychic energy, and it can manifest itself in any sort of way that you would like. It says here, at first level, the sword appears as a shimmering shaft of light and energy that resembles a glowing sword. By second or third level, however, the sword's appearance can be shaped by its maker and generally reflect its creator. So you could change it. It doesn't have to be necessarily a psy-sword. It could be a psy-axe. It could be a hammer. It could be a big mace. However it kind of sort of fits your character, and how you envision your character. And again, I go back to this picture because we have a lot of sort of different variations on that theme as well too. And the sort of, the outlook of what your character sort of represents. This one has sort of kind of a Roman legionary type of theme. This has got kind of a Viking-esque with the horned helmet. This one has almost kind of like an Egyptian type helmet. But I would almost picture like this Cyber Knight with a big hammer, or maybe a mace as his sword ability kind of thing. You can also see that this character in the forefront here has pointed ears. It's probably a DB of some sort, or maybe even just an elf that was sort of pulled in from Palladium Fantasy, part of the Megaverse. But that's the kind of cool thing, is that using those abilities, that psy-sword ability at the second level and higher, you kind of sort of customize, again, what your character sort of looks like and what you perceive your character to look like. Some of the other great stuff you get, you can change the color of the psy-sword as well. And then you can also, beyond third level, you can choose to create 2 psy-weapons in addition to that as well too. The next thing that's very, very iconic about the Cyber Knight is the cyber armor. When you become a cyber knight, you completed your sort of squire level of training and become an actual fully fledged cyber knight. You are given a special cyber armor that's fused directly to your body, and these all have the stats listed here as well too. And those change over time. Because the armor itself is grafted to your skin, it becomes sort of a living part of your body, and therefore at level 4 becomes living armor and does change. The armor rating changes as well as some of the strength of the armor as well too. There's also a section on here on Cyber Knight Zen combat, which is awesome. Types of variations on combat as well that the Cyber Knights use, whether it be hand-to-hand or sort of like the mental combat abilities of the Cyber Knights. Very cool. Again, another option to sort of customize your character. Back here we have, and it goes by level. As your character levels up, of course, he gets more and more abilities and choices to make at those levels as well too. And then over here we have the basic stats. So this is very common for every character class in the book, or OCC in the book. Basically lists attribute requirements to become a Cyber Knight, the skills listed that you can choose from, and the bonuses you get for any of those skills as well too. Secondary skills, your starting equipment, your money, and then it talks about cybernetics. You can get more cybernetics, but they need to be very minor sort of adjustments. I mean, you already start with some really awesome armor anyway, an armor that sort of grows and evolves with your character as well too. So it also gives you some other variations. It references the Coalition War Seeds and Tolkien, the Cyber Knight. That's book number 4, the Cyber Knights. It gives you some more backgrounds and information on the Cyber Knights and some other cool abilities as well too. So why play a Cyber Knight? Like, of all the character classes that you could choose, why would you pick to play a Cyber Knight? Well, if you're a fan of like anything that's sort of like medieval, that's the great thing about Rifts, and that's what I really love about the Rift setting, is that no matter who's playing, there's always something available for them. So, for instance, if you sit down with a group of random players and you ask them what it is they're interested in role-playing, someone's going to say fantasy, someone's going to say science fiction, someone's going to say Old West, someone's going to say, I want to do Asian-inspired martial arts. Rifts has it all. Rifts blends that all together perfectly, and the fact that the Megaverse system of Palladium books all uses the same core engine to run its games, all those different games are sort of blended together. But there are elements of fantasy in the Cyber Knight. There are elements of science fiction in the Cyber Knight. There's also that idea of sort of a, kind of a Wild West sort of gunslinger aspect to the Cyber Knights. There's also there can be a very Asian themed sort of martial arts themed in there as well too, as well as very medieval-esque sort of King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table, Sir Lancelot kind of feel in there as well too. Also, if you just really love Star Wars and you really want to do sort of a Jedi type of a character, this is the character for you as well too. They're very, very customizable and they're very flexible in their creation process. And you also get some really, really cool toys to play with as far as the cyber armor and the psy-sword. I think the psy-sword is one of the coolest weapons in the game. I've always been interested or enthralled by the idea of sort of like being able to summon up a weapon out of thin air and being able to defend yourself or to defend others. The only restriction I could see to this character class, and it's not even really a restriction, but they do live by a code of honor. And that is to defend all living life, and they do have this code of chivalry here. Now, I'd say there's probably a lot of gray areas in there as well, too, and depending on how strict the game master wants to be, or less strict, there's a lot of variation in these as well, too. When it says, under nobility, exhibit self-control, and there's a lot of gray area in that. Like, what does it mean to exhibit self-control? Does that mean not attacking people? Does that mean, simply defending people? Or does it mean, the ability to control all your combat abilities and unleash hell upon your enemies? again, like any of these can have sort of gray areas in there. So there's a little bit of a structure to the OCC itself, but a lot of sort of variation in theme and stuff as well too. So Cyber Knight, a great character class to choose if you want to choose any of these in Rifts. Like I said, it gives you a lot of variation, and it gives the players a lot of choices and flexibility into anything that they can kind of conceive as a Cyber Knights. Also, a lot of mystery behind the character, which is also a lot of fun to role play. And if you have a player who really likes to go into depth about sort of their background and want to keep some cool, mysterious things going, and that's the great thing about the Cyber Knight too, is that a lot of times in games, the game master will request that you have a fully fleshed out background for your character to draw upon, which is great for the game master because it's easy for him to draw upon for adventure ideas. But it's also kind of fun to use a Cyber Knight that has sort of a mysterious background to it as well, that you sort of evolve over time and throughout gameplay. So that's the Cyber Knight from Rifts Role Playing Ultimate Edition by Palladium Books. Next week, we're going to focus on a different character class, OCC, Occupational Character Class. What it will be, haven't really decided yet, but I'm going to work my way through a bunch of these. And if you continue to like these, please subscribe below, like the channel, like the video itself, and shoot me your comments, and I will try to complete those and get back to you and make videos based upon what you guys are looking for. So until next time, I'm Questwise, and we are out.